AVST Academy webinar. Today we're going to be talking about the CXE Mobile client. Pat Haney, our training manager, will be walking us through the session here. But before Pat gets started, I just want to let you know that we are happy to take your questions at the end, time permitting. And so you can certainly type those questions in at any time during the webinar. We'll have them, that way we can have them queued up. So, and any that we don't get to, we'll follow up with you offline. If you're looking for the question box, use the orange arrow in the upper corner to expand your webinar panel, and then you should find the question box there. And we are also recording this, so if you'd like to go back and review it at a later time, look for an email from us later today with a link to how to access the recording. So with that, I'll let Pat take it away.
All righty. Today we're going to take a peek at CX Mobile and how to configure it. CX Mobile is our client, or actually there's three different things for CX Mobile. We have a client for Android, we have a client for the iPhone, and we also count the Web Phone Manager Mobile as a mobile services as well. There's really nothing to do for that though. That's just part of how Web Phone Manager works. Now, the other two, this is basically a connector or an interface to your CX server or your CX system for the outside world to have your cell phone or your smart device be able to access and do pretty much everything you can do on Web Phone Manager or only more through your device. There's nothing magical about it. As a matter of fact, it's pretty easy to install and configure. It's surprisingly so. It works on a website, and I'll do my hemming and hawing here. There's a lot of different ways to implement this kind of website, or a website that'll support CX Mobile. We're going to show you actually a very common setup. The easiest one, the one that's sort of in the book, but if you know a better way to do it, there are a million different ways to configure websites, especially ones that are using just industry standard stuff like we are. Like I said, there's nothing special. So you can tailor it pretty much to your enterprise. And mostly when you do that, you want to keep security in mind, that this has to be connected to the outside world. It's going to need some ports opened up to be able to talk to cell providers. It's going to need some ports open up to be able to talk to Google and Apple, and you want to secure that from being able, or anybody from being able to get to the CX system other than the web server itself. You also might consider, if you don't know anything about websites or building a web server or building a website on a web server, you might consider getting some training on how to do this. I suggest the dummies books. I usually start there. IIS is actually quite intuitive. It's pretty easy to figure out. Apache a little bit more difficult, but it's very well documented, and there's ways to figure out how to do it. One of the things, though, that comes with this is you should learn a bit about how things communicate over the web and how to keep yourself safe when you open up ports and have these systems talking. So what we do here with our client is we put the whole feature set out. I said it's Apple and iOS. It allows you to, if you have a local message store as opposed to unified messaging, it allows you to manage your messages. It allows you to make calls. Previously, you would only really be able to do that with Personal Assistant, where you'd be able to say dial, ring, or call, say one of your contacts or a number. Here from the cell phone, you can use that same functionality and dial through the CX system. Manager availability, that's a big part of this application. I use it a lot. New in 8.7 is not only can you manage which greetings you want or turn greetings off and on, you can record them on the application as well. Of course, just like Web Phone Manager, you can pretty much configure any setting that you have in your mailbox. You can access contacts. You have a directory for the other subscribers on the CX system. And you can also control, as I said, outgoing calls, but incoming calls as well. You have the ability to have a badge or a notification sent to your cell phone that says, hey, there's a call waiting in the CX that wants to be delivered to you. Do you want it or not? Before the system even bothers transferring you or transferring the physical call, you can screen your call over your cell phone before deciding to have it ring over and have to answer it. So basically how it works is you have a web server that's running the CX mobile service website. Now this website doesn't really have a page that you can look at. The only thing it does is provide a web interface for mobile devices and builds a connection between the CX system and the outside world. So to do that, clearly the CX server and the web server need to be able to communicate. Now normally you're going to put this web server on what's called a DMZ or demilitarized zone. In a firewall, that is a protected zone that you can control the traffic to and from the zone from the outside world and to the inside network. So you basically create rules, if you're not familiar with firewalls, that allow only certain things to happen and only certain devices to communicate. So in this case, you would let the CXE system server and the web server communicate, and you would have to have that. You would have to open up a couple of ports. It wants to talk with HTTPS and it wants to talk with SOAP. So in our book are the ports for those. It'll be, I believe, 465 and 18276, something like that. It's in the documentation. You allow those two to communicate. Going outbound, we need to be able to contact Google and we need to contact Apple. And we do that for pushing out notifications like that call notification, or like you have a new message notification or something like that. When you have a new message, the CX system tells this mobile service goes out and tells Google or Apple to go tell your phone you have a message. Though that message then flows through the cloud back to your phone. So you obviously have to have things opened up for that to happen. Okay, licensing, which this is kind of interesting. For 8.7 SU1 and below, you need a personal assistant license to be able to log on and use the client at all. If you want to access messages, you're going to need a UM license, or combined all together with an ATOM license. And those of you that aren't familiar with ATOM, it's our bundle. It includes personal assistant, unified messaging, and speech licenses. It's meant to give you an easy way to license the full unified messaging experience rather than have to figure out how many of each type of license that you need. The client itself is downloadable from Google Play or iTunes App Store, and you can go get that for free. There's no cost for that. Now, and I said that 8.7 SU1 and below because I believe in 8.7 SU2 we're going to open it up to where you can use the application to manage your mailbox, and we're not going to charge you a license to do that. And I heard that's maybe August, so you might want to check back in August and see what's happening with the new software. Okay, Apple, you need an iPhone or an iPad. It works for nearly every one that you're going to have in your pocket. I looked at that for a second and said, well, I guess I should put the actual iOS version, as if anybody's running iOS 4. You have to download the application, and obviously that's going to require an Apple ID. What's nice about Apple is they're very mobile friendly. It's a good way to put it is they're very mobile friendly. So we are certified to use our app in iTunes, and by that or from that relationship, we're also allowed to have a certificate. So which is really kind of cool is when you install CX Mobile, you don't have to do anything to have it talk with Apple. You basically just hit the button update and it goes and gets our Apple certificate for you. That's really nice. It's really easy to configure. There's almost nothing to do but go get the cert. Google is a little bit different. Android 2.3 or better. You have to install the application just like you would from Apple. You're going to do it from Google, need a Google account, that kind of thing. The difference here is you're going to have to create a Google API account, and you're going to have to enable it for cloud messaging, and you're going to have to create a project number. With that project number will become an API. It sounds more tedious than it is. It actually, if you have a Google account, which means, of course, you're going to have a Google account for your CX system. Don't use one of your personal accounts for this. So you go in, you have a Google account, you log in, and you go to cloud messaging and you apply for a project and they give you the number. It's really not that tough. It doesn't cost you anything. It's just an extra step that you have to go through to have the credentials you need to be able to do pushes and stuff like that. We're going to see that too. It's not tremendously difficult. What everything else needs, the web server requirements are identical to Web Phone Manager. It has to be IIS or Apache. That's the two systems we work on. It can be installed on the same platform, even the same website. I learned a trick from our pro services guys last time. They cut me loose to go actually do some work. They basically just drag the folder into the Web Phone Manager folder, and it just rides on that website, which makes it very, very easy. So what it is a website. You have to install PHP and install a certain amount of modules, CURL, XSL, and SOAP. The instructions, of course, for this are all in our documentation. There's nothing magical about installing PHP. You can do it the hard way, manually, or you can do it the easy way and install a PHP manager of some type. There's a test you perform. We give you the one-line code to write to go and look and see whether you've installed PHP properly, and then everything starts working. What's kind of cool, and we're going to see it on the administration portion of this webinar, is that the admin site for the mobile services actually tells you whether or not it's installed right. So it's very helpful. Obviously, you're going to have to be able to reach this from the internet. Obviously, this server or this website is going to have to talk to the CX system server, and it's really highly suggested that you use SSL or encryption of some type. It will work without it, but it will work on HTTP, just regular old website stuff. Some things to keep in mind. Keep the host name something simple, like cxm.avst.com or something like that. Don't put in, some long name. Remember, somebody's going to have to type this in on a device, so make it simple to type. You should use static IP addresses. We're gonna see this for CX Mobile for the app to communicate with the CXMS service. You're going to have to use the name rather than an IP address. The reason being is those things generally are going to change. You want to use it to browse to it like you would any other type of website. And don't overdo the security policy. And this is probably a good thing that Matt's not on, because I'll tell you what happens if you overdo it. What I mean by that is use an advanced security policy, crank up the number of digits that you need in your security code, like 6 or 8, make it advanced so you can't have easy ones, and then make it cancel every month or so. When that happens, you're now in a whole new world of inconvenience, would probably be the better way to put it. So when you log into your CX mailbox and you don't know your password, and if you have it set up to lock out, it locks out after, say, 3 attempts. Then you call up, or you go to Web Phone Manager, you have it reset, and then it only happens when you do 3 attempts, right? You have to make basically 3 tries. Well, an application like CX Mobile Service or the Unified Messaging Connector, if you use that, that's going to try a whole lot of times in a few seconds to try to make it work. So what's going to happen is you're going to type in your security code wrong because you forgot it and it was overcomplicated anyway, and then you're basically going to get one shot, and then your mailbox is going to be locked out. And that has to do with overdoing the policy for security. I won't get into the philosophy of it. I mean, it's really, really hard to guess a 6-digit number, as long as it's, not As long as it's not too complicated, I don't think you need to have it locking things out after you pass, say, the 4-digit level. You got to be some sort of genius. Anyway, so don't overdo that, because it will make basically all the cool stuff that you get to do with mobile and get to do with unified messaging, it'll make it mostly useless, because you'll have to get your password reset every time you try to do anything. Of course, you're going to need the Google API. I copied the second bullet from our engineers, and it's really an easier way to put it is DNS has to be configured correctly and it has to work. If you cannot reach places on your internal and external network properly using the names, then this clearly isn't going to work. And in today's environment, that's pretty much true for every type of application, but it's especially true with CX Mobile. If we can't get to it, it isn't going to work. Cellular networks aren't what you would think. I mean, we're used to really fast connectivity. Some of them are better than others. What you got to remember here is that some of the things, like if you're getting notifications, if you're not connected to the network for that brief 1-2 minutes when CX tried to deliver you a call, you're going to miss the notification. And there's nothing we can do about that, because you were not in a place, even if it was for a minute. The call came in, couldn't find you. It's not even going to try and reach you after that, because it's going to decide that you're not there, or it's going to know you're not there because it went out to try to reach you. This also has an effect if you're using availability and you're using the mobile client to use location-based routing or location-based overrides. So if the network's not that great and you're in an elevator or something, you are all of a sudden not in any location that you're known about, and the system probably won't go to send you a call, that type of thing. This is mostly for incoming call notification if you're using that kind of feature. Secondly, or lastly, clearly Android and Apple look different. They also behave different. And the reason I say that is there are things that Apple lets us do that Google does not. And one of the things that I noticed, or a customer noticed, when we installed it on his network is that the guys with the iPhones had these really cool little dots, little red dots that said how many messages they had and stuff like that, or how many calls that came in, and the Android guys didn't. And got their badge notifications, but it just popped up on their screen and then went away, and then no little number popped up. That's because Google doesn't let us have the cool little number. So they do look a little different, they do act a little different, and that's just the way it is. It's the same thing for anything Android and anything Apple. Well, not questions yet. Time to play. So let's start off with, there really isn't anything to do on the CXE system itself. There literally is no configurations. The CX Mobile goodies pop up when the mobile services server starts talking with the CX system. That's the cool thing. You really just have to tell it where it exists. So where we should probably start here is over on our web server. And what I have here is IIS. Let me pop this up. Okay, on your drive or on your DVD that you get from AVST with your software on it, this one's the newest, or one of the newer ones, you'll see something called Web Applications, a folder, and you'll see Mobile Services, Mobile Admin, and Web Phone Manager. These are the actual sites. There's a little wizard that runs if you hit start, where you can install these components. You don't really need to do that. You can actually just copy them. So this is the website itself. By the way, the docs are here. The docs are here as well if you want to go find them if you're going to do this. So what you do is you create a site, and in a web server like this, you just simply right-click, add a website. It's going to ask you for a folder. You could have created the folder before. You could probably create it after. That's going to create a folder, at least on IIS, called inetpub, that's where all their internet stuff is, www.root, that's where all their stuff is, and I have several folders under here. This one happens to be in Web Phone Manager, and I just copied the CXMS folder right here from my CX Docs web application, or my CX DVD web application, copied all this stuff over here, and that pretty much created the website. As long as you have PHP running and you have your website set up, that's pretty much what it takes to install CXMS. Of course, the website has to be running. There's a couple things you have to do to make this work. The default document, you may have to put in index.php to have the system understand PHP. There's some other little tiny steps, but the biggest ones are once you've installed the website, there's a couple of folders here that need to be shared. Starting with certificates, this is where we keep our certs. We have to be able to write, so you're going to have to share, and you're going to have to set up the, usually you're going to use an anonymous ID. You're going to have to give it read or write access. I got mine using the CX admin. And I have this website as run as, so I'm running it as a CX admin, the same account as my CX server. Now, and the reason I do this is not only am I on the same network, internal network, this is not exposed to the internet. I'm actually on the same server. They're just two different virtual machines. So this one you have to share. You're going to have to share it with an ID that the CX system is going to use to be able to read and write. Usually it's the anonymous or the iUser logon. You're also going to have to share the config folder and the logs folder. So under config, you'll see something here, config.xml, that's the actual live config file. You will see a config_defaults, that's the default config file. One of the nice things is, since this is just a website, right, if you blow this up and delete these somehow and mess it up and it doesn't work again, you can always go back to the DVD and copy these right back over. Config.xml, you'll see there's really not much to it. I'm telling it where the CX server is. I'm telling it to use HTTPS. There's some logging in here. You don't really need to do this. It's just nice if you want to do the hardcore IT thing and play with this XML file, you know, go for it. If you blow it, just copy a new one back over or delete it altogether and then do the way you're supposed to configure it, which we're going to see in a second. So once you have it running and you have PHP running, then you can browse to the website. Now remember, I have mine under my web phone manager, and that's the URL to get to my web phone manager. So really all I got to do here is remember my new folder, or the folder is CXMS, and this is specific to mine. This has, you know, like I said, there's a million different ways to do this. This is the way I did it. I've done it in the past where I've mapped its own site, so it's like cxm.cxtraining.avst, and then let it do its own thing, and it went right to this folder. Now the website or the page you're looking for is called admin.php. That's the administration page. It's actually the same page in Web Phone Manager. So if you've configured Web Phone Manager, you're pretty much used to using it. We're looking for a CX login here. And then what you'll see is, what you hope to see, is a bunch of green lettering that says pass and success. That means it's going to work. What'll happen is as soon as you open up this application, the website's going to run through and do some tests. And the first thing it does is, can I do configuration? Can I do certificates? Do I have the modules loaded that I expected to have loaded? File upload and file upload directory writable, that's part of the PHP installation. It's going to see that you did that properly and have at least 10 meg in that. This is part of the PHP installation, these last three. Then you're just going to put in your settings. The CX server, it's going to ask you that, by the way, the first time you start this app. It's going to say configure a server, put in the name and IP address. That's all it's needed for the CX system. You can have multiple CX systems running from the same website. Then the web server settings themselves. Whether or not to use SSL, I'm not. What the name of the server address is, and then the URL path to get to the CXMS PHP file on this web server. Now, here's a trick. That folder, or that file, or site, or page is in the same place this is. So you're going to have this, the combination of the server address and the URL path look just like this up here, only cxmns.php. If you don't get that right, you're not going to be able to get to it. And it'll show you what it looks like after all is said and done. Down at the bottom, another big thing here is, can the CX server write stuff to the web server? So what you do is you hit test. If it works, you should have this, a success. If it doesn't, it will say timeout, or it will say I can't, which means you usually have a sharing issue or a connectivity issue of some type. Once everything's green, once everything passes, you're fine. Once this passes, by the way, you press update and the system will automatically go out and go get your Apple certification. You just hit update, it magically appears, and then you're done. Google, you're going to have to actually physically type in your project ID and API key. And here's the deal. On the presentation, I said project number. Okay, when you register a project, you're going to get a project ID, you're going to get a project number, and you're going to get an API key. So somewhere around a year ago or so, they changed what they want for push notifications. So we have to actually have the number. So that's actually a project number, not the project ID. If it doesn't work, check that you put these credentials in properly. Once that's done, I mean, you just simply press OK, and you're up and running. One of the things you have to do, of course, to make this work is your mailboxes have to have a mobile device. So over in personal settings and web phone manager, you can do this as an administrator too, by the way, through the administration utility. Put in a company mobile or personal mobile or something like that. The system's going to look at the caller ID the phone's giving it to see whether or not you have a mobile. So you have to have a mobile program in your mailbox in order to make this fly. So you'll see that here. Let me pick my mailbox. Over here in devices, I have a mobile, and what's cool is once you have the CXMS service running and it's talking to CX, you'll see this window pop up. There's nothing else that you have to do but have that talking. This automatically comes up, and then you can configure it. Whether or not they want notifications, what kind of alerts they want. You can also set this up from the mobile client as well. So you can select that. You can say response timeout, expirations for alerts, that type of thing. All these other fields you don't really have to worry about. Those will populate as soon as you connect to the CX system with the mobile client. So you can see there's nothing to do on a CX, nothing, other than get the web server and talking. To have that happen, by the way, remember SU1, 8.7 SU1 and below, you're going to need a personal assistant license to make this work. So unless you're going to upgrade the new software, that's what you're going to have. So the other half of this, see if I can get this flying, is installing the actual client itself. So to do that, you have to go to a web, you have to go to an actual cell phone, which I'm trying to do. It doesn't want to do. Well, that figures. There we go. Worked yesterday. There we go. Ooh. So, the App Store. All you got to do is search. Really just type in AVST, it'll probably come up. Yep, AVST Mobile, and just go get it. I mean, I already have it running. This will be get followed by install. Works the same way for Google Play. You just search on it, and then you have the application. Once you have it, let me log out. See what it looks like. When you first get it running, you'll see a screen something like this. Put in login. We have our server that you have to connect to. It's going to ask for your mailbox and your phone number. Hopefully my mailbox still works. Did I just give out my password? Great. Put in your security code. Don't care about this. We can do this later. Then you have your calls. You press the key over here. Calls, contacts, directory. Go find anybody in the CX system. I have mobile override, that's on availability. So you just touch it and you can change which availability you're using. New in 8.7 is greetings. So you can have multiple greetings in 8.7. You can have multiple greetings for each, or a greeting for each availability state if you want. So you can have more than just standard, busy, and out of office. To record it, you just simply touch it, and this little app comes up that you can then record it over your telephone. More settings is where you have everything else about your mailbox, about your account settings, availability, enable mobile location, turn it off and on, notification settings. Do I want to have call outs for my mobile? This is where you turn that on instead of having the administrator have to do it. Daily message reminder. So if I slide this over, it'll say what kind of notification do you want or can have. Some display settings. It's actually pretty simple to use. I use it probably more for changing my availability and looking at my call lists to see who it was that called. Call, for the call different features. I can come back here and say dial. Just put in a number and we'll go out and dial the number and then call me and then connect me together. Same thing with contacts or directory. I can hit a contact or a directory, have it call, and then that way, that's what's called single number read. We have a fancy word for it. I forget what it is. Hides your number because you're getting a phone call. Whoops. You're getting a phone call from the CX system and not your mobile number. So it's a good way to hide your mobile number from people. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. There really wasn't much to it. You install a website, make sure the website can talk, and then you download the app and make it work. Really, it's one of the more simple things you can do with the CX system. Almost Web Phone Manager is probably just as simple. So, I'll make my phone go away. I'll just drag it over here.
Okay, thanks, Pat. Okay, there are a few questions that have already been submitted. If you'd like to submit a question, you can do that in the question box. Use the little orange arrow in the upper right corner if you have that minimized. And so there's a couple of questions about documentation. Pat, I assume there's a technical doc we could probably send out to people as part of our webinar follow-up?
On the DVD, it is it called just mobile services? Here it is, mobile client service.
Okay.
You can find that on Partner Express. I think you can get the documents on the forum.
Okay, well, I'll add it to the follow-up email too.
That has all the steps, just like the Web Phone Manager one and the Mobile Admin. They have all the steps, so somebody like me can figure out how to do it.
Okay. Let's see. There's another question too. Is there any reason, can we provide the slides as well if people want to review that? Actually, that content will be in the recording too, so I'm not sure that just the screenshot.
I don't see why not.
Okay. Okay, and then let's see. So there's a question about a particular installation. Let's see. I'll just read it. Installation went pretty straightforward and instructions followed, but when contacting help, there were contradicting solutions. The Google API went well, but when opening up the Apple cert, it did not come down. Is there a manual process available? He may have submitted this question before you covered that.
Usually if it can't go out and get it, it's not going to be able to talk to it either. So when that happens, when that's happened to me, basically, let me put this up so we have questions. Get back to this. Oh no. Usually when that happens and it won't go get this cert, this test has failed. Every time. As soon as that loop connection passes, that magically appears. If it doesn't appear, there's some firewall thing in the way stopping you from either getting to the site or stopping one of the ports from working or something like that. It should be able to go right out and get it. Because this is very similar with a lot of things on the CX system. The other one I can think of to mind is Dialogic cards. All right, if we can't read Dialogic Configuration Manager and see that there's a card there, putting in a card isn't going to help you because you're going to tell it about a card it can't get to. So it's always best to have it go out and get it. And if it can't get it, there's a reason why, and you need to find that out. Probably through a log or a sniffer. Usually the logs show you that I tried to go do this and couldn't. So it's usually pretty apparent. Even just a Windows event log is usually all you'll need to say I tried to do this and couldn't do it. Usually though, if it's not, another thing that'll make that fail is, although this one will tell you so, is if it can't write the directory. It's usually one of these two things that this will fail. That's a tech support problem I'll probably fix in 2 seconds. Every time I call with a problem like that, it gets fixed in a second.
Okay, thanks, Pat. Another question says, we are going to SHA2 certs. How does this impact the mobile service app, if at all?
I don't know. That's a good question. That might be a follow-up one.
Okay, we can follow up with the attendee
If it's a different type of cert, if it's a different type of cert, well, you're going to get the cert that you get from like Apple. That's what you get. I mean, you probably have to enable both, at least for this, if it doesn't work at all.
Okay. All right. Well, like I said, we send all the questions back around. Typically, I'll have Matt Sawyer review them as well as possibly sales reps in case things need to be escalated. Obviously, none of these are sales questions, but they can get them to the right people.
Right.
Yeah, so, okay, it actually looks like that wraps up the questions, unless anyone's still typing. I'll take a look here. So just want to thank everyone for attending, And as I mentioned, we will send a follow-up email later today, which will have the recording to this session, a copy of the slides, and as well the mobile services or mobile client services doc that Pat mentioned. And I can also include some additional info. If any of you are not already accessing our user forum, or if you've not signed up for a login for that, there is a place on that forum where you can get to our documentation. So unless, if you're a premium ExpressCare customer, you probably have access to the documentation on our partner site, but the user forum is available to everyone. And so that's avst.com/forum. And like I said, I'll send out that link as well. So thanks everyone for attending. These are quarterly webinars, and there will be a quick survey pop-up. If you have suggestions for us once we conclude here of topics you'd like to see covered on future sessions, go ahead and fill those in on the quick survey. I think it just has 2 or 3 questions, so it should just take you a minute, and that should pop up on your browser as soon as we conclude the webinar here. So thanks, Pat, for taking the time to walk us through this.
No problem.
And if any of you have coworkers or you missed part of this, we are running this again on Tuesday next week at 11 a.m. Pacific. So we'll hope to see you there or on another of these sessions next quarter or later this year. So thanks again, everyone. Have a great day.
All right.
To learn more about AVST, please visit www.avst.com.